Right now I am working on calculating some inter-rater reliability for some different measurements, and I'm still trying to figure out which measurements I want to calculate this for. But as I was working on this, I came up with a few comments and questions, and I thought I would share these first before I move on to the inter-rater reliability part. I kind of want to show you what I've been doing in a few places I got stuck and some solutions I found. So what I did first, there will be 3 coders total on my research project. Any video will be double coded. So I'm not sure yet who will do which one. It'll be randomly assigned who will double code them. So I'm going to need to be able to look at the overlap of how we code. So what I did, if we want to be able to use the same timeline, I realized we each need our own code window that is the same but is identifiable to each person. So you can see here I have 3 independence code windows and one for each person, and I have our initial next to the code that will be on there. So all of this first one are for Dane, the second one is for Andrew, and the third one is for me, and I have our initials at the end of it. I also changed the colors a little bit to quickly sort through them in the timeline, which I'll show you in a second. So even though all of us have orange as our not working code color, we have 3 different shades. Dane's are all the lightest, Andrew's are medium colors, and mine are the darkest versions of the colors. So I can very easily spot these different rows as it gets a little bit more complicated. So that was number 1. I did a sample coding using my code window and Dane's code window, and I want to show you what that looks like on the StudioCode. This is not it. Sorry. That here it is behind here. So I did that coding, and you can see the lighter colors I did with Dane and the darker colors with me. And just with anything, our interpretations of exactly when an instance starts is not going to be exact. But I would hope that, we'd be at least 90% accurate. In research you look for at least 80% accuracy or even more. What I did find, if you look here quickly, there is... Oh, I've got so many windows open. There's this one and Dane's code window. So if you actually look, I executed our scripts, and we had the same numbers actually. Dane had 42 out of 3 minutes 55 seconds, or 18%, and I did as well. But if you look at where exactly our instances start and stop, they're not exactly the same. So I'm working on calculating that. And as I was doing that, how I did that was first I needed to create an independent work period row from beginning to end. And I also needed to create 2 specific rows, one that shows how much time total that Dane and I coded independent working, and how much time we agreed on that. So if you look, some of these bars here might be shifted one way or another from Dane's to mine. How I created these 2 rows were actually really simple to create. This first row, the total, I created a new row. If you go to row and you create a new row, it gives you options here. I'm not going to create one right now, but this Dane and Tara total could be the Dane's independent working or my independent working. So that gives me the total amount of time. Any amount that's his or mine would be the total amount of time we coded independent working. And for our agreement, it would be Dane's total and my total. So what the overlap of our 2 is. So ideally, I would calculate then a percentage of the amount of time we agreed, our overlap, over the total amount of time that either of us gave independent working. That would give our agreement for that. So where I actually came on a little stumbling block was initially creating this independent work period row. I remember during my training session, Ryan did it very simply, and I could not remember for the life of me what he did. So I tried to come up with some solutions, and I thought this is what I would talk about. One thought I had was in Dane's window, you can see what I did. Oh my goodness, so many windows open. Not here. Maybe it's got to be a better way for me to sort through these. Okay, so in Dane's window, I created this box down here called independent work period, and I thought we would do that at the end. This is one solution, where I just made it a code, and I just started it running at the beginning, and when we got to the end, I ended it. So we had the same independent work period for everybody, from the earliest to the latest mark of independent work. And I just have it posted here, the time, and that's the same number that I'm using to calculate up here. So that's option number 1. It's definitely doable. It takes a little bit longer because you have to go back and code one more thing. Another option I thought of, but I cannot figure out a way to do it, is just to create another row. The whole independent work period, it has to be all instances that are either independent, not working, or working with assistance. Those are our only 3 options, and one of the 3 is running at all times in that independent work period because they turn each other on and off. So they're back to back. So I thought, oh, I could create a new row, and I could go, row, create new row, and I could use the or option. I could say independent working, or not working, or working with assistance. Any of those. That would create a new row that meets any of those conditions, and I think that would make a good independent work period. However, I only see options to do combining 2 rows. So I don't know if there is a way to do it with more than 2 rows, but here is a perfect use for that ability. And I'm thinking even if I was doing some iterator reliability and I was coding with all 3 of us coded one video, if I only have options for 2, I would not be able to easily, I could creatively do it, but I would not be able to easily say the overlap of all 3 of us. While it's not, I don't know if you would always use that. In education, I think it would be a necessary thing. So if anyone has a thought on that, if there's a way to do it, or maybe it's something that could be added in the future to be able to add more rows into this. So that was my option number 2, which I thought would be very easy, and it would stop me from having to code one more thing. And the third option is one that Ryan just showed me. I just contacted him and he gave me this third option, and I'll show that here. The third option is, so this is where, I can delete some of these rows. Actually, while I'm deleting rows, I'm going to show, as I'm deleting these rows, you have to control click or right click and then click delete selected rows if you don't want them on there anymore. This took me a long time to figure out. Kept going up. I would click on a row and I went up to edit and I could not find a delete button. So I'm not sure why it's not up in any of the menus at the top, but something it took me a while to figure out that you have to control click on it to delete a row. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. Another way to create an independent work period is I can create a new row plus, and I can just pick any row, or I can duplicate the row like this and have a second version of it. I can rename it as whatever I want, like independent work period. And if you click on an instance and hold Command and Option at the same time, I can stretch out the instances to be however long I want, and I can actually create this independent work period just by stretching them out. So that's an option as well. So those were three options for doing that. I still think the easiest one is to create a row that's A or B or C when it comes to these 3 here, working with independence, not working, or independent working. So if there's a way to do that, I'd love to know it. If not, or if anyone else has another suggestion besides those 3, let me know, because right now I'm on a roll here with all the things that I am figuring out, and I'm getting very excited. I just showed the code window and some of the calculations to my cohort members, and they are thrilled that we are going to be able to pull in all of our videos and so easily make these calculations. So more on the iterator reliability is coming soon when I figure out which measurements I'm going to calculate. And yep, that's it for today.